Hello friends, welcome back to week 7 of the Snowed In Sampler Sew Along. This week we are going to be making these blocks right here. So I'll show you the color combinations that I've made. There's that one. And scooting over, we have this color combination. And up here we have this color combination. Now if you notice, I chose to use 2 directional prints on 2 of the blocks there, and that does make it a little bit more challenging. So if you don't want to have to worry about the direction, then choose a print like I have chosen right there. Then you don't have to worry about it. And then I also wanted to show you the bonus runner that's in the pattern, because you can get some ideas for some more color combinations here too. So that first one I did use a directional print there, but the rest of them are not, and you know, they're pretty cute without having to use the directional print as well. So in our next slide, I'm going to go over some of the cutting and assembly instructions. I've done all my cutting for our block, and I have all the pieces laid out so you can see how many there are. There's a few more than last week. I think the main trick with the cutting is if you're using a directional print, you're really going to have to pay attention to which way those pieces go. Now, the pattern does give this little chart right here that shows you how you should lay out your pieces so that the print is in the correct direction. So hopefully that will be really helpful for you if you decide to go with a directional print. And I just want to mention that because I'm making that little sampler that I mentioned last week, my block is going to be turned the opposite direction, which is why I have my trees going sideways. The block in the quilt that you're going to be making, they're going to be tipped this way. So that's why those trees are going the wrong way. So once you get your cutting done, then we're going to go on to step 1, and I will show that in the next video. So our next step is going to be to sew folded corners to either side of our 2.5 inch square cut from the bow fabric. Now, because I'm doing directional prints, this complicates this a little bit too. So I just wanted to show you how I figure out which way they go. So as you can see, I have it all laid out how it's going to be sewn together, and I find that to be very helpful because each of these 4 pieces will be going a different way. So I've got 2 laid out here. We're going to sew across like this, and I will talk a little bit more about that in detail in the next video, but they're going to be sewn and flipped like this. So to get those 2 pieces going in the right direction, I'll show you what I do. And now this one is going to be going this way. So I'm going to lay my piece to match the piece it's going next to, and it's going to be folded in half this way. So I do that, and I can see that it matches. Then just lay it down and fold it back over. Now I know that one is going in the right direction. So this one, it's going to go on this corner. So I want it to match the trees going this way. So again, I'm laying it out how it's going to be in the block, folding it, and laying it down. I can see it's going the right way, and then just let it unfold, and now it'll be in the right position. And you can go ahead and do that for all of those, and then you can just carry it over to the machine in the direction it's laying without moving anything, and then you can do your folded corners, and they'll be all positioned correctly. So we have 4 of these little blocks to make here, so I'm going to show you 4 different methods for doing folded corners. Now the first one is maybe my least favorite, and that's just to eyeball it. And the reason it's my least favorite is because to me it's the least accurate. So pretend that this isn't here. I'm not even looking at that. I'm just eyeballing and sewing from corner to corner on that square. And the thing about eyeballing is sometimes your line might be a little bit crooked so that when you fold this over, it doesn't quite meet the outside corner or it folds over too far. So to me, accuracy is just the biggest issue with that one. And I'm going to put a pin here so it holds my directional piece in place. The other option you have is to use some sort of marking on your machine. Now this is the diagonal seam tape from Cluck Cluck Sew. So if you have that, you could try it. You could also use masking tape and just mark your machine with those lines. The important part is to get those lines marked accurately. And once you have a line on your machine that is directly across from your needle, then you can just follow that little bottom corner along the line as you sew, and that transfers your line on there for you. I'm just going to sew onto what I call a bunny tail here and pull that back so you can see how I went from corner to corner there. we go. Now we're just going to turn our block and we're going to sew down the other side. So I'm going to sew off that bunny tail right onto my next piece, and again just sew from corner to corner. And we're going to do the same on this one. Again, either eyeballing or looking at that line, to the little red line here, to transfer your sewing line to the correct place. So that's 2 of the blocks. In my next video, I'm going to show you 2 more methods. We're going to talk about 2 more methods for doing the folded corners. And the next one is to draw a line on each block. And I use this, let's see if I can get it in focus. There you go. This friction clicker pen. And the reason I like this one is because as you iron this, it just totally disappears. So you never have to worry about your ink bleeding like you would with a ballpoint pen. You can also use like a sew line pencil, which I've got a couple of them here. And they work really well too. The lead's a little bit softer, so it glides easier across the fabric. This pen also glides very easily across there. So you can use any ruler that you want to transfer that line onto your block. Now, the thing I like about this method is that when you're sewing, and you can see I've done that on this side with the red thread, is you can sew just to the outside edge of the line. So when I say outside, I'm talking about this corner that's going to get cut off after we're done sewing. And let's see if the camera can focus. You can see here I am just, barely a thread to the outside of that drawn line, and that just allows for the turn of the fabric so that you don't lose quite so much in there. So to me, it's like the most accurate method. Now it does take a little while to draw all of those lines, so you have to decide, is this a piece that the accuracy is really that important on or not? And in this present block that we're making, it may not be as essential as it will be for, say, a block like this, which we'll be doing at the end, that requires a lot of accuracy. Then let's talk about one more method that I really like to use, and that one uses the folded corner clipper ruler. Now this is something I do have in my online store, or you can find it at a lot of different quilt shops. And the idea behind this is that you take this black line and line that up corner to corner on your block, just like that. And then I use my little small rotary cutter, and you trim the corner off before you sew. You can flip it around and do it on the other side. You got to make sure that your block is totally lined up and ready to sew before you make that cut so that it stays accurate. And now you don't have to do that trimming later. So typically after, like on this block, I've already sewn that one, then I would have taken my cutter and cut that off before I went to the ironing board. But in this case, that's already cut, and then you're just ready to sew, and you just line up your presser foot along that cut edge. Now the thing about this is this becomes biased, so you do have to be careful that you don't stretch it out as you're sewing. So when you're sewing, you're not going to want to clamp your finger on the bottom and pull like this as you sew. You're just going to gently guide it. You're going to start in this corner right here, and you're going to sew down to this corner here, and it should just automatically line up with your seam allowance right there. So you can give all those different methods a try and see what is most accurate, what you like best, what you think goes the fastest, and give those a try. I want to share one quick time-saving technique for if you're doing folded corners and you don't want to sit and trim all those with a scissor or trim them individually with your rotary cutter. You can line them up on your mat, and you can see my stitching line here. You can see it best on the one that I used, the red thread. But you're going to line that up all along one line on your cutting mat, and then you're going to, I put my 1/4 inch mark on that line, and then you're going to go ahead and trim all of those at once, and it'll make it go a lot faster. Now that we have all the folded corners finished, we can go ahead and start assembling our block. I'm going to zoom in here and show you. You're going to be joining these 2 pieces here, then you're going to join these 2 pieces, these 2, and those 2. Just like that, and then you're going to be able to go and attach these second pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that, and I'll be back. All right, now we're to the fun part, and that's assembling our block. So we're going to sew that ribbon piece in between these two pieces. We're going to do the same here at the top. Then you can go ahead and add the ribbon piece in the middle. Now, as far as pressing goes, when you're sewing these pieces to your bow, those two seams are going to go away from the bow, and that's the same on all four. And the pattern does show you little arrows of how that goes. And then when you get to the ribbon, you're just going to press all the seams toward the red ribbon. Those are the directions that are in the least amount of bulk, so that is why I have you pressing it that way. Here we have our completed block for this week, and the proof size on your block should be 9.5 by 14.5, and your assignment is to go ahead and make 3 of those blocks. Now, looking forward to next week, we're going to be working on the tree blocks. So one thing I want you to think about is in the big sampler, I show the trees out of solid colors. There's the second one, and there's the third one that you're going to be making. But for my little sampler, being there are less blocks and I don't want it to be boring, I thought scrappy trees would be more fun. So you can think about that so that you know how you want to cut those for next week. And in the meantime, make 3 of our little present blocks here. And if you enjoy making those blocks, don't forget about the table runner. I still have that laid out here. The table runner here that you can make if you have enough scraps left over. Happy sewing, and see you next week.